Okay, well, hi everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Desirae and I'm with the El Paso Chamber. We're here today with Representative Mary González. She is one of our main members of our Texas delegation. She represents El Paso very well in Austin, and we are so pleased to have her. Thank you so much for joining us today, Representative González.
I'm really excited. I think that these are great tools that we can connect with people who maybe we normally wouldn't even connect with. So thank you for hosting this.
Yes, of course. And we're so excited to have you. We know that you are kind of one of those innovative leaders that El Paso is so blessed to have when it comes to your outlook on education, mental health. Those are things that you really lead the way in. But I wanted to go ahead and ask you the question that is probably on everybody's mind right now, which is Governor released new orders that are going to go into effect on Friday. A lot of us were kind of shaken up by it. Some of us were excited about it. Some of us were a little nervous about it. What do you think to the safety and the health of El Paso?
Well, this whole pandemic has been a really traumatic for people of El Paso specifically. I know what I say a lot is that this virus has really magnified the discrepancies that have already existed in the state and in this country. So I'll give an example. We have a lot of El Pasoans who don't have access to insurance. We have a lot of El Pasoans, particularly in my area, in the rural communities, that struggle to get to get medical resources. And as much as all of our community leaders have tried to make everything right, what I'm really concerned about with the governor's orders is that we still are behind in testing, we still are behind in tracing, and we still haven't hit our peak. So it's just really, I'm a little bit nervous and anxious, but what I do feel proud of is how great our community has been about listening to the directives of our local community leaders.
Right. And I think a lot of people feel that fear and that anxiety. So I know that you're a big advocate for mental health. I know that you're one of the main people who really pushes this. Oh, and before I forget, everybody who's watching, this is a Facebook Live. So please feel free to directly ask your questions to Representative González, and she will be able to answer them for you. Or if not, we will do the digging to find you and answer. But as I was saying, so I know that when it comes to mental health, El Paso has really moved in the direction of being proactive. And you have been a big part of that along with Representative Moody. What do you do right now, or what do you suggest for El Pasoans who are feeling the anxiety or the stress and strain? And what do you intend to do like statewide with your delegation to put that at the forefront?
I'm glad you mentioned the delegation. We're really, really fortunate in El Paso to have an amazing delegation. For those of you who don't know, there are 5 state reps and 1 senator that represent El Paso County in Austin. And one of the things I was talking about with Representative Moody, like you mentioned, was the fact that, El Paso specifically, think about a year ago nearly. We went through the immigration crisis where we had families under bridges and kids and facilities that were overcrowded. So we went through that traumatic experience. Then we went through the traumatic experience of the shooting. And now we have this. And so in 1 year, the delegation has gone through, and this community has gone through so much trauma. I was talking to my friend who's a teacher, and I think one of the hard parts is that our students, our young people started their school year in a very traumatic reality post the shooting, and now they're ending their school year with the coronavirus. And so I think now more than ever, we really have to think about the younger generation and how much trauma this last year we've been inflicting. And so having very honest conversations about mental health is critical, probably for this community more than any other community. Things that I'll say things I do personally, and then things I think the community could be doing. First and foremost, I'm very proud to talk about the fact that I have a therapist that I see every other week. I've seen her for a very long time. I think that she is amazing. I also am really a big advocate for animals. I'm fostering a dog from El Paso Animal Services right now. Plus, I have 5 dogs, goats, and horses. And so that's always been a proven way to help mental health. And the other thing I really do is make sure I find a good balance. I think in moments like these, it's really easy to work all the time, to not take a break, to work on Saturday because Saturday feels like Monday and Monday feels like Thursday. But to make sure that you really say, okay, I'm going to stop the clock and I'm going to take a breather. Granted, it's a crisis, so sometimes you can't always do that. But as much as you can find balance, it's really critical. As far as the delegation is concerned, one thing that we have been really thinking critically about is making sure that we are working to make sure our community has the resources necessary. I think one of the things that we need to talk about as a community is the fact that our local nonprofits have been critical in helping bridge the gap between access to resources. And now more than ever, they're going to need our help.
Right. I totally agree with that. And, you bring up an excellent point. We just had the shooting in August. Now we're facing coronavirus. We haven't yet hit our peak. And I know El Paso is a city where a lot of our employers are medical facilities. So a lot of the people who live in El Paso work in the medical field. Mm-hmm. So I know even my mom is a nurse. And that is stressful just in itself, having to worry about your parents or, making sure. And I know with the governor's orders, that has gotten a lot of people worked up as well, just feeling as though they're not ready. So what do you recommend for people who feel like they may not be ready to go out quite yet?
I mean, if you're not ready and you don't have to work and you can still work from home, then don't go out. I think that's a big thing. No, like even though the governor says we can go out, I am still staying home. I'm still sheltering in place. I am the sole food deliverer to my father, who would be very, very hurt should he get the coronavirus. So I am self-isolating for him, just because I want to be able to always be there for him should anything happen. But if I'm going to the movies or going to restaurants, then I won't be able to be there for him. So for people who have anxiety, first and foremost, take care of yourself. The other thing I'm going to say, and what makes the governor's order really difficult, is it really creates complexity to our unemployment benefits. So let's say you have a job that wants to open, a business that wants to open up again, but you're a worker and you're like, well, I still have anxiety about this. If you are asked to come back to work, your unemployment benefits do get jeopardized. What we're asking you to do is, if you have any problems, please contact anybody in the delegation. We're gonna be working through a lot of these. We've been going through a lot of cases with Workforce Commission right now, and so we'll always want to see what we can do to support you.
God, that's really great. And I know I have friends in Austin who are having such a hard time accessing like unemployment, and I was telling them that's weird because in El Paso, like you just contact one of our state reps and it gets taken care of. So you guys are really working overtime, and I know all of El Paso is very grateful for the work that you're putting in.
We're so blessed to have an amazing delegation that really works together, and then also has the respect of Austin, so that when we do go and ask for things from agencies, they're used to working with us, and so we're really grateful for that.
Yeah, you guys are really, I think this is the most that El Paso has been like united and really making that impact in Austin. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in the next session.
Well, and political leadership in El Paso has transformed in the last few years. We had everything from Beto O'Rourke running for president to, Congresswoman Escobar doing amazing things, the delegation. I just think if you look at what El Paso looked like for leadership, political leadership a few decades ago, it's very different than what we have right now.
Right. El Paso really seems to have made it on the map, I think nationwide. And then as, I think with Beto's running, that really put El Paso kind of on the radar of Texas. So this is going to be exciting, although with the COVID, I know we're going to have a lot of issues to face. So again, thank you for the delegation and all you guys do. But what I really wanted to touch on is something I know that is super close to your heart. And I just quickly want to remind viewers that if you have any questions, go ahead and post them, and I will be able to access them, and we'll go ahead and ask. So this is very interactive. Feel free to ask away. But Representative, I wanted to ask you about the education aspect. I used to be a teacher. My sister is a teacher. I have a nephew in middle school. I think it's safe to say that most anyone who is in the education field or has a child is concerned about how this is going to work out and roll out. And as far as digital resources, I taught at Bell Elementary, which is a feeder into Bowie. So I know my students over there didn't have internet. A lot of my students were first generation Americans who were, crossing back and forth. So they may not even be in the United States right now. What is your take on digital resources and the way that schools are accommodating for COVID?
Yeah, so I completely understand the digital divide. I feel it. I live in Clint. So many of our local communities don't have access to these resources digitally. And think about what had to happen overnight. You understand, as a former educator, you create your lesson plans. You have, here's how I'm gonna get through the year, and then all of a sudden, within a week, it's like, forget that. You have to redo all your lesson plans. And so one of the conversations I've been having, and I invite the community to think of, is the trauma our teachers have been experiencing. Not only did I mention before, just how big this year has been for our community in a traumatic way, but also just having to switch over, having your own kids usually in school, but our school districts have been really quick to respond. I think one of the things, like we talked about political leadership, education leadership in El Paso also has transformed tremendously. Socorro ISD and Clint ISD and EP ISD, all the ISDs really quickly ordered hotspots, got laptops, and in a span of a couple of weeks, right? And that was a huge lift. I think that one of the things we're going to have to think about, one of the things we talk about, I'm on the education committee in the Texas House, and we've always talked about the impact of the summer slide. That means kids who, when they finish school in May, and then they go away to summer, and they come back in the fall, always experience kind of a slide down. And it's just a natural reality of learning, right? Because we have that gap. Well, now they've had a larger gap. What kind of gaps are we going to feel going into next fall? And that's one of the conversations that our education leaders in our community are having. The other thing they're talking about is, what about the opportunities for summer school or summer enrichment? And so I'm kind of just sad that our young people are having to go through this, but what I have been proud of is the education leadership who has really worked to address a digital divide that exists more in El Paso than in other parts of the state.
Right. And I totally agree. I mean, as far as the summer slide, that every year I taught first and second grade combined. So my first graders would come back to me as second graders, and it was always like, oh no, you really have to play catch up to get them back to where they were. But that's their break.
It's real.
Yeah, that's a break, and you have to anticipate that. But I know even just from talking to my sister that she experiences where she's doing this lesson and she looks in at night, there's only like 5 kids that watched it. So it's one of those things that I guess is just going to have to kind of be worked through. But we are lucky that we have the leadership that we do in El Paso with you and with the school boards to be able to really push that. Now, go ahead.
And I think one of the things that we have to be able to give ourselves a little bit of a break, it's a global pandemic. Like, I think sometimes we expect to be able to produce and everyone to just operate at the same level of intensity. And while some people can, and in fact, that's the way some people are healing, other people can't, right? And it's not wrong. It's just the reality of experiencing trauma, like we've talked about. And a global pandemic is we can internalize all those feelings of what that means, of stress and anxiety and fear and concern and the unknown. And so just to untangle all that in our brains, and then be productive and manage whatever else is happening in our home life, it's very real. So I'm trying to spread as much empathy, compassion as we can in this moment.
And I think you've done a great job. I know that not to to say anything bad about anybody else, but I know that a lot of El Pasoans feel a very special connection with you. I think because you really do have that authentic feel to you that makes them feel, you know, very comfortable and very relatable when it comes to you. So I think that you are really leading the way on that, which is great.
Thank
One of
you.
the things that I wanted to ask was, I know that there's talk from the White House. Seems like every day there's
No,
some
there is talk every day.
there's some new idea. Um, and I know that there was talk about opening schools by the end of the year. Do you think that's wise? And what do you think about the idea of resuming graduation ceremonies here in El Paso?
So I've been really careful not to go too far advanced in the future. As we know, things are very rapidly developing in regard to this crisis. For example, even this morning when I woke up and was watching Good Morning America, and they were talking about pets getting the coronavirus, and I was like, "What? I thought we were safe from that." And so I got a, but like that was just an example of everyday new information, new data, and I hope some of it will be more optimistic than pessimistic. And so right now, I think we will really have much more information about the spread of the disease after 2 weeks from Friday. So as the businesses start to open up, as we see people being responsible or not responsible, we will be able to look and think and make better informed decisions. One of the things that I have seen as regards to leadership is there right now, specifically in this crisis, leaders who use data and information and science to guide their decision making, and leaders who maybe use other sources of information and knowledge to make their decisions. I am answering all questions that I get based on data and science. So right now I'm really hesitant because, like you said, authenticity, but authenticity is also comes with honesty, right? And I don't know where we're going to be in 2 weeks. I want to be optimistic that we won't continue to see the peak, the moves up, but I'm a little bit concerned that opening the government, the business and economy will create a larger spike, and we'll have to go back into shelter in place. And so let's talk. How about this? Ask me that question in 2 weeks and I'll give you a response on Facebook.
I like that. I like the cautious optimism. That's
Yeah, that is like my middle name, cautious optimism, right here.
yeah. So I mean, I know that that was the latest. They've already set up some graduation schedules that were supposed to be going on. So I know that that's a concern for some people, but like you said, there is that, you know, we are getting new data every single day and we are kind of adjusting to it. So
What I do think was really powerful was I saw the videos of the young students, the seniors, who were saying, "Stay at home for me so I could walk." And I think that was really powerful to see young people making that ask and getting engaged in the conversation. And so hopefully El Paso will honor. I think what's great about El Paso, you know, the number one question when you go meet somebody is, "What high school did you go to?" Right? And so we genuinely really believe in the role of our local schools. And so if we believe in that, graduations are really important. So hopefully people will think twice about going with their friends or going out, because it's really going to impact these young people's lives, probably more than we will ever know.
Yeah, you know, and it is one of those things where, you know, you do have to take a moment and think about, you know, in El Paso, it is always, you know, where did you go to school? And I know when I worked for Congressman Reyes, the big thing was like, oh, you went to Coronado? Oh, like,
Yeah.
it's fun. But it's one of those things where you have, you know, graduation is a big deal. And the idea that, you know, you won't be able to do your ceremony or, you know, any of those key things that are a part of senior year is pretty heartbreaking. But I do appreciate your honesty with the idea of, you know, let's not speculate until we have more knowledge closer to the date of.
Yeah.
Right now, I know that, you know, at the Chamber, we believe that the way to eradicate poverty is through helping people get businesses started. And we want to make sure that we are, you know, as responsible as we are, and we are really taking into account, you know, not doing anything that would further spread COVID or anything like that. How do you feel about El Pasoans supporting businesses, and what do you recommend to keep that going?
That's a great question. One of the things that I've been really intentional about and through this corona crisis, well, and even before, is making sure I am buying local as much as possible and supporting local. And so one of the things that I think I'm really glad the chamber has a tenet that says one of the ways to eradicate poverty is by increasing entrepreneurship. And so what can we be doing right now? One is we can buy local, shop local. We can try to order online as much as possible. And I think that I always talk about there's two ways to vote in this country. There's a way to vote at the ballot box, and there's a way to vote with your dollars. And so being really intentional, considering there is limited resources for so many families about where you're spending your money, is really a big way for you to make a difference on your own. After, like, I was talking to my dad today, he's like, oh, I need to buy a belt. And I'm like, he's like, I'm just gonna order online. I'm like, no, you're not gonna order online. We're gonna wait, and we're gonna buy from Cowtown Boots when it all opens up. And it was a very intense, we had a conversation about it. He's like, well, why do I have to wait? And I'm like, because it'll mean so much more to Cowtown Boots than it will mean to Amazon.com. And so those are just little choices that we can make in life, and it goes a long way, especially if you think of there are about 800,000 people in our county. If all of us just do a little bit more to support our local industries, then we will be able to really make sure a lot of them survive this crisis. And El Paso's great about that. We believe in community and coming together, and we've shown that in this last year specifically. So.
Well, yeah, and I agree. I mean, I do admit that late at night when I can't sleep, because I have anxiety as well. So, late at night when I'm like, my mind's racing, and there's this like just voice in my mind that's like, go to Amazon, go to Amazon. You need candles. You need candles.
Everyone needs candles.
Yeah, you can't ever have too many. But I recently we interviewed a hippie girl, and she does like they've really done the whole pivot thing with how can we improve how do we stay in business but also operate around COVID. So what they've done is they've made everything delivery. So everything that they offer, homemade soaps and homemade candles, you can still order it online or through Instagram, and then they just have someone who comes and delivers it to you. So while she had a spa that had to lay off some of her workers because spas are closed, she was able to rehire them to become delivery drivers and to help stock up on stuff.
I love that. And I think that there's so many little examples, like Ramirez Farms here next door to me. They do pecans, and they're doing deliveries of all different types of pecan products. And I think if you're thinking, okay, I need to buy a birthday gift, or I need to buy graduation gifts, like just thinking of what can I replace what I would maybe normally do with something a little bit more local. I'll give an example. I love wine, not like in a quantity, like not a lot of wine, like glass of wine every now and then.
Yeah, it's okay. It's no judgment.
But one of the things that I have done is, instead of buying wine online, I'm buying only Texas wine, 100% Texas wine, because I've been doing a lot of research about how then we're using Texas farmers and Texas people who make the corks, even like every little bit of it. And so anybody who needs recommendations on some really good Texas wine, I'm here for it, because but again, intentional choices. I could have easily gone to like Specs or to Total Wines or something.com, and I'm saying no, I'm going to go to these places because I know they need the help now more than ever.
Right. And I think that that's great. I know that speaking of Representative Moody, I know his wife, Adrian, is really working wonders with Moms on Board. Yes. And I actually just had the ability to sign up to, so it's all local restaurants. And you sign up for a shift, and they deliver meals to first responders. So I thought that was really cool, and a really great way to kind of, really push advocating for staying local and also helping first responders.
Exactly. And that's just sadly a lot. I was talking, there's a little restaurant in Clinton called Mamacita's, and I was talking to them, and she's like, well, I'm not making what I was going to make, what I would normally make, but I'm at least being able to keep my employees employed. I'm at least being able to stay afloat so I can survive this. And so we're talking about survival. And I think that's where we need to just come together to help everybody survive.
Right. And you know, I think one of the great, I mean, if there's going to be a silver lining in any of this, I think it's really that we are all bare to the bone right now. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we are all in our most, you know, visible and vulnerable spot where really it is the idea of a family restaurant surviving, or making sure that our neighbors are taken care of, or you know, that kind of thing. So you know, I really think it's a great idea. And the way that you mentioned it, where, you know, it's like, no, we're not going to buy a belt online. It's more convenient. Yes, it would get here sooner, but you know, let's wait until we can get this from someone local, because that really is someone's livelihood. So
Right.
that's great. I know that you were just appointed to the Legislative Budget Board. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And
It's a big
I know
deal.
you served on appropriations for quite a while. Um, what challenges do you foresee coming up?
Wow. So, just to give some background to people who are watching right now, I serve on the Appropriations Committee, the Public Education Committee, and Vice Chair for the Local and Consent Committees. And the Appropriation Committee, which meets every 2 year during session, we basically make the budget for the entire state of Texas. That's nearly $250 billion that we allocate to the state. Well, as appropriators, what happens is we get the base budget. Well, that means that there has to be somebody who makes that base budget before we get it as appropriators. And so the LBB is a 10-member board that kind of works in the interim to start making that base budget for the appropriators. And so it basically gives our community another level in the process of representation. Nobody from El Paso has ever been on LBB. It's a big deal for us. It continues, like I said, to keep to make our place at the table. Sadly, and kind of in a nervous way, it's really fun to make a budget when you have money. We know that our state's budget is really going to be impacted the next biennium. We know oil prices have been struggling. We know there's going to be a decrease in sales tax. We know that there's going to be a change in property taxes. And so all of these things combined will make the position more difficult, but that's why now more than ever, it's important to have our voice at the table so we can make sure that we can say, hey, maybe this was important for our community and why. And while we won't be able to save everything, maybe we'll be able to advocate, or I will be able to advocate for our community at this level. And so it's a huge honor that speaker appointed. And so the speaker could have picked a lot of other members who are very well qualified. And I love serving in the Texas House, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
Well, we are so proud that you are the first person from El Paso to represent us on there, and we know you'll do us proud. So is there, we got a question about what you think the most important thing to draw funding to El Paso is for. I know that must be pretty hard.
I think right now, first and foremost, is testing. If we could draw more resources in to have as many testing sites as possible and have the resources as possible, taking care of making, we have all the equipment available for our medical folks, then that would be my first instinct. Like, let's get that all taken care of. All of the resources we need for tracing. So if we know somebody has coronavirus, we need to be able to use our science to trace, okay, where were they, who was there, so we can then start to quarantine people so we can stop the spread of the virus. And we still, with as much work as we've done, we still haven't flattened the curve. So what's scary for me is so many people have been staying at home, and we've done a lot of good work, but there's still so much work to be done.
Mm-hmm. Does this make you worried about going back to Austin, you know, and that travel back and forth? Because it's not like we're the closest. You know, it's a bit of a trek.
Yeah, no, of course, I think anybody in this time is a little bit more nervous about travel, but I take my position very seriously. I love being a state rep for my community, and so I'm proud. I'm happy to go do the work that I was elected to do. And so, am I nervous? Yes. Am I going to take all precautions? Yes. And luckily, I don't have to go to Austin anytime soon, and I get to stay home and take care of my animals and my family.
That's
I
great.
I do think I am a little bit concerned about what session looks like. I think this next session is going to be critical. Not only do we have the budget, but we have redistricting, maybe, hopefully, which is also a deal with the census, which if you haven't filled out your census, I am looking at you right now. Please go fill out your census. We only have a 48% response rate in El Paso County. That means half of you haven't done it. I'm looking at you. Go do your census. But we will have redistricting. We will have the budget. Those are two big things. Democracy only works if people's voices are heard. So I'm curious to see what testimony looks like, what participation in democracy looks like. And so hopefully we can try to find some normalcy just to be sure we're engaging in such an important process.
Right. And that was actually my next point was the census. So from what I can tell, you're a big advocate. For the regular person who may not be, like just, it's just a piece of paper that comes in the mail, you get calls about it. Why is the census so important for El Paso?
I mean, it is the foundation and the cornerstone of our democracy. It determines how many legislators and congressional members we have. It determines what federal funding we get. It really just does create all of the roots for us to be able to have what we need in El Paso. I'll give an example, one that particularly impacts us at the state level. We talked about me being on LBP and the rise in El Paso political leadership. Right now we have 5 state reps. And this is before coronavirus, so who knows now, but before the coronavirus, the demographer, our state demographer said that each House district was going to approximately be 200,000 people. So if you do 200,000 times 5, that's 1 million people. We know El Paso County doesn't have 1 million people. So there's only 2 options. One is we have 4.5 state reps, and since I'm the most eastern, mine would have to go all the way out to other counties in order to pick up population, or we only have 4 state reps. And it's what a shame, because we're finally like getting our little bearings and we're moving up in the world, and we might lose a state rep. This is critical because we are competing with other delegations that are so much larger. Houston with over 20, Dallas with over 15. So have 4 would be hard, but so we need people to fill out the census, because if it doesn't even come close to 4.5, it'll be so much harder for us to stay. We need 4.5 or even maybe 5. We will just go down to 4, and then that's gonna be sad for our community.
So it really does affect the funding that comes to El Paso. It's not about partisanship. It's not about what you think is important or what you agree with or not. This really is just even basic funding.
Right, it's basic funding. So for example, the census data tells schools how much they can get for certain programs or hospitals, roads even. There's so many levels of funding. This is completely not partisan. I see my Republican colleagues who I have great relationships with all over the state encouraging their communities to also fill out the census. I mean, to be honest, the Republicans would be hurt the most by a decrease in census numbers because of the congressional seats available in the state as a whole. So this isn't partisan. This is truly about making sure we have the resources that we need to take care of the people in our community. So again, 50% of El Pasoans have not filled out the census. I'm your abuelita right now, shaming you. Please go fill out your census.
You got the chancla somewhere over there?
I'm ready for it.
And when is the last day to complete the census?
So that's a great question. The dates have kind of been pushed back because of the coronavirus, and I don't have that date off the top of my head. I've only had one cup of coffee. I think it's in September though.
Okay, perfect. So it has been pushed back. So if you haven't done it yet, or you can't find it, or it's buried somewhere in your pile of mail, you have time to look for it and fill it out. And we think it's in September. And we will definitely check back with you and put that on our page along with this interview. Well, Representative Gonzalez,
if you lost your census, call our office. We will help you figure it out.
Perfect. I am one of those who have lost my census, so I will be calling your office.
Looking forward to it.
Well, thank you so much, Representative Gonzalez. It's been an honor and a pleasure, and thank you for all the work you do for El Paso.
Thank you to y'all, and please let us know. Everybody out there watching, we're here to serve you, so please reach out. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
You too. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This has been the El Paso Chamber with Representative Gonzalez, and we very much appreciate you joining us.